Welcome to Wisco Dies. Hey, yo, folks. It's the one, it's the only, it's Conesy with the most. I am here again to do another painting tutorial. That's right, 2 painting tutorials, 1 week. Pretty amazing as far as I'm concerned, especially considering how little video we have ever produced here at Wisco Dice Studios. So, on today's episode, we are going to work over here in the painting area. We are working on continuing to improve the studio setup for this, so hopefully this is going to be a little bit better than the previous painting video where I worked on this on these models pants. But on this episode, we're going to actually work on the greens, so everything from the uniform itself to the backpack, and do that so that we end up with a finished model that's going to look something like hollows when we talk about getting it all painted up. So similar highlighting, similar shading, getting all of the green. So we're working on, this is Warlord miniatures, bolt action, 28 millimeter US Infantry, painting the green. Now, if you choose to paint, you could extend this green color to the pants as well. I chose not to, partially for my own artistic appreciations, but I have seen uniforms and images of U.S. Infantry World War II uniforms that did have the brown or almost tan or brown pant, and certainly it would simplify your paint scheme if you did it all the way down to the pants here. Uh, I'm choosing to actually do it just for the upper jackets. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So to start this miniature, I already painted in, just to kind of, for the purposes of time, I painted in with 09159 Worn Olive from Reaper Master Series Paints. So this is a Master Series paint color from Reaper Paints. Made here in the US, gotta love that. So did a couple of base coats so that I've got the color and the shading on the uniform, on the jacket itself for that color. And then for the webbing, I swapped up to an 09176, the military green from Reaper, again another MSP paint. And I'll actually also do the helmet in the base shade of this color, but I didn't do that for the purposes of this video. What I'm going to do then next is I want to, again, just like the pants, I'm going to do the darker shading first, and then bring it back, and then work it all the way back up. So to do the darker shading, I'm going to use an 09236, the black green, and I'm also going to combine that with a Series 7 Winsor Newton 000 size brush to do it. So let's get the paint on the palette, and we'll go ahead and get started with this. And so just a little bit of water, not a lot. Just thin it just slightly so I can have a little more brush control. That's all I'm really looking for with the paint. I'm going to just go ahead and do all of the shaded areas. I want to, here I'm doing a nice care to try to not ruin the existing colors I put on, but I'll go back in a later step and clean that up. So if it's not perfectly precise, that's fine. You're going to clean it up later anyways. And that will actually aid a little bit in that transition. So yeah, all of these really dark recesses where it's transitioning. Here's a good one right here where it goes down the center of the coat. Under these, that fold, along all the edging here of this, there. Now, do you have to get this perfect? And is this the best way to do this? I don't know. You certainly, I entertained the idea of doing this with a wash, but I'm trying to. This is a technique that I'd use for facial features, and I really like the facial features the way I do them. Although, I mean, like everyone, I have places to improve. So this is a technique I decided to do, as a way to kind of force myself to improve that facial feature technique. I did this to try to really improve my own skill set so that when I do faces, I can do those even better. Now, as I'm kind of finishing this up, this wave of initial shading up, all of those trimmed lines have been done. This spot here behind this backpack, that's going to be dark. That's going to be shaded. So let's cover that. Let's just get a little paint in there. Um, and then let's look for some creases in the cloth. Like right here under the armpit, that's going to be a little bit. So we'll just shade that in a little bit. Here on this jacket, we'll just, there's some wrinkles there. Again, here in the armpit area, the right around the cusp here, where the hand and the jacket come together, that's of course going to be a little darker in there as the light kind of fades into that jacket, so making that spot darker. And again, look there, I slopped right there. Don't worry about it. My finger's in the way now, you can see. Slopped right there. Don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. And wrists. And then I just have the backpack. So the backpack, right along the spot where the gun knife is. I might choose to do those knife straps in leather anyway, so no worries there. Just hurry through this. It doesn't take long. You don't just want to focus on touching it up, accuracy, and just getting it. So one of the things I'm kind of aiming for when I paint these models is to make the highlights and the shading very noticeable at distance, but also if you look at some of those old war posters, you'll notice that same kind of concept in the way that the war poster art was done back in the the 1940s during World War II. So some of this look that I'm achieving with this army, and if we go back to looking at a completed model, is that same kind of extreme look, right? So we can see with this guy, he's very extreme in coloration. He's very extreme in noticeable shadow to fade, and in light and dark. So it really makes him pop at a distance. It makes him pop here on the camera. It's very noticeable. And it's going to make him pop on the tabletop, but it also kind of goes back to that, hey, this my army is this is all being done as kind of U.S. American propaganda for World War II. So now that I've done that, I do need to actually go back and touch up some of the worn olive pieces. So I'm just gonna get a little bit of worn olive on the palette and touch that up. Again, the same size brush, but like here where I noticed I hit a mistake, I'm gonna clean that up. And it's usually at this point too, if I see some spots where I don't feel the coverage of the initial couple of coats was good enough, I can clean that up too and make that a little nicer. I don't like this. That's a little too extreme. Same thing here. It's a little too much, so I can just clean that up. This doesn't look quite pointed enough, so I'll paint that in. Some opportunities here also to clean up some of the maybe deficiencies in this particular release of plastics from Warlord. These are the older plastics from Warlord for the Americans. I'm working on building up the new ones, but I don't have enough of them, or have them into the paint queue and prime to be able to work on them. But now I'm just gently cleaning it up, making this guy, get this guy's base coverage really the way I want it. And there's a number of wrinkles and stuff. I could have done these wrinkles in this on this side too, but maybe I'll do a little something different for that. Just clean that up, and then this backpack, clean that up. Okay, I'm not looking to try to make this to be some kind of amazing award-winning army, but I am trying to expand my technique as well as have a nice looking tabletop army when I'm done. So that takes care of that cleanup work, and as you can see here, it's already starting to be very noticeable, just like the pants. Get my finger out of the light, you can see the pants on this guy are slightly shaded up, and you can really see the difference of that dark green, and that will show up, from feet away, which is always our end goal when we're painting miniatures, is to be able to at least we have the figures in a way that people can notice it, because that's the first thing. If you can't get the person and people to notice your army from a distance, from say, when they walk by the table and they're looking at while you're playing a game, and they can't notice the figures, then they're never going to take the time to really look and hone in on how you painted the specific detail. So doing this kind of extreme contrast, while it might not be 100% historically accurate, gives the model a lot more character, I feel, in trying to get the right look. Now, for the next step, this is all drying relatively quickly. The thinner paints and whatnot dry relatively quickly. So these steps I can kind of go through really quickly with you. The next step, though, we will use 09030 leather brown from Reaver Paints. And we're going to mix that in about a 50-50 ratio with the worn olive. So now I just grab actually I think I have some of this leather on the palette. Now I will ultimately use I'll use that same 000 brush to paint in these highlights, but for mixing this, I'll just grab a little bit bigger brush to get the initial mix and blend kind of done on the palette. And I'm not sure how well this will look on the camera. It looks almost the same from a colors perspective, but here is kind of the mixed paint, and here is the original worn olive. So you can see a little bit of the difference in the color. That didn't work. The light glare is terrible. So, but yep, it's just light. It's just a lighter shade. You could, actually, I think I'm gonna actually use this brush here to start with. You could use a khaki here instead. I kind of like the way the yellow kind of naturally highlights and shades the green. And I could, for the next step, actually go to a khaki as well if I wanted to take it up another layer. But in this particular case, I'm pretty happy just sticking with the layering I'm doing. And I really like the effect that I get. Slightly yellow, that slightly worn look color too, that it kind of gives me, which kind of, I don't know, it just gives me that old time feel just a little bit more, and it helps kind of pull it in with the pants as well, since this was a color that was used in the pants. So I know I said I was going to use the 000. I just happened while this brush was in my hand, and it's got a nice point to it. This is the Winsor Newton Series 7 just a zero brush that they have. You can use any size zero, really, whatever your favorite zero is, but I think the size, it's more about the quality of the tip here. And because of the thickness of the paint, it is not necessarily, since I'm using Reaper paints, they're already kind of naturally thin, and I did thin this just with a touch of water on the palette. The paints will dry relatively quickly, which means I can go back if I feel like it. If I want that highlight a little more extreme, you just go in and put it in another coat. Just layer it up a little more, because when you paint it on, it will always be brighter than when it dries. And as you continue to paint in these additional layers, it really helps starts to, solidify that base coat as well, so that you get a very vibrant, solid color on your tunic, which is really nice. And this particular coat that this guy is wearing. And the biggest place where you have to try to be very careful is when you're painting near where one of the other colors are that you painted previously. That's really where you have to have all your caution. Okay, now this is really nearly finished now. I'm just looking for any of those last little spots where I think it would benefit to be a little bit lighter, like the sun or something is hitting it. And no, that's it. Now I don't think that's going to be super noticeable on camera, but I think you can see a little bit here, like this shading here, where it's the original color here, and up here it's the lighter color, and the same here. You can see it a little bit, and I think that it's very minuscule at this point, but it's very noticeable, and at least here, in person, I think it's even better. All right, so if I want to take this up just a little bit more, what I could do is then mix in little, not faded khaki. I don't think that'll do what I want it to do. But I could go in and put a little Terran khaki, which is 09122, into the mix. So if I just put a little bit of that on the palette, and then I'm not going to actually we'll mix up a little more of this green with the leather, spotch of water with it, and then put in just a touch of that khaki. And I will end up with a even lighter tone that's still much the base color, and I can just clean it up. I can even highlight up just a little bit more. It'll be even just a little bit brighter. And the key here is this is a really thin paint on the palette, so it's now just a matter of layering it up however many layers you want to layer it. And because it's so thin, it will dry really quickly and give you a good idea what it's going to look like on the finished model. So here I can paint in those spots. Maybe I want this little guy here, these little, just there you go. Bing, bing, bing. Just paint in the highlights wherever you feel like they're needed, and then go back over them when they dry a little bit and bring them up a little bit more if you feel like it's necessary. And when you're painting the highlights, something I just kind of noticed I'm doing, like particularly on the larger surfaces, I am like, this arm is positioned in this direction, kind of horizontal to the camera, right? So I want to paint in a vertical path along the arm. So um, just I think that helps with maybe some texture, if and just kind of the way the natural light looks on that particular surface. Whenever you have larger, flatter surfaces like that, that's kind of the way you want to do it. Is kind of, and you want to do it as kind of a jagged line, because then it makes like natural reflections in the light. And even though your highlight layers are very subtle here at this point, that will naturally fool the eye. So now, and as we go through this, we might even still find ourselves cleaning up and covering up a little more of that really deep green that we used for in the initial early layers. That black green, so that it's even less predominant now and less dominant of the colors. And there we go. So there we go. We've got it. So that's basically it. There isn't anything really more to it. That's all it is. And now it's just rinse and repeating these same techniques over and over through this miniature. So I'll do that same kind of techniques for the helmet, the skin tones, the grenade, the various other, the boots, and the other bits and bobs. So when we come back, I'm actually probably going to get this miniature done, and we'll do another video where I talk about the basing of the miniature itself and how I approach that. So until next time, thanks a lot, folks, for listening. We really appreciate it. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you like what we're doing. We're going to continue to work on improving the process and the approach as we work on these videos with you. So thanks for your patience, and also take the time to hit us up on all of our social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, peace out.